You seem to have your feet firmly planted in both the comics and movie world now, but where would you recommend a Mark Millar novice begin? Back at the Ultimates or something new like Kick-Ass?
It's interesting because I get into comics really to work on characters that I loved as a kid, but the new generation of guys coming through, the guys who are in their teens just now, really want to create their own characters, and I think that's really interesting. It's kind of like, it's the new century, it's a kind of a new vibe really, you know, that these guys want to do something for the 21st century instead of just rehashing ideas from the 20th century. And I'm getting into that myself now, you know, like I love doing Wanted and I love doing Kick-Ass, and in some ways it's kind of more thrilling than even doing stuff I grew up with like Superman and Spider-Man. So yeah, there's part of me that I thinks it's a good idea to do your own stuff, but equally the reason Wanted sold so well is because I'd established myself doing other people's characters. So my recommendation would be use Marvel and DC to get your name known and then go off and create your own stuff. And Frank Miller, the guy who did Sin City, that's his advice to everyone too. The big companies will chew you up and spit you out over the course of a decade or two. So what you've got to do is jump first. You know, you use them to build your name up, your profile up, sell tons of copies, and then those sales, those readers will follow you over into your own work, hopefully.
Good. Regarding movies, Wanted was a massive success. I loved it myself. But how pleased were you with the final result? And do the differences between the source material and the film version matter to someone tempted to now pick up the graphic novel?
No, I think the differences between the movie and the comic book are quite minimal for the important stuff. You know, like the actual character journey is identical for Wesley Gibson, and most of the stuff that they ditched was stuff that was a bit too exclusive to a comic book audience, so I was quite relaxed about it. But I think somebody picking up the book who's seen the movie, they're going to get a little bit extra from it as well, and somebody going to see the movie, they're going to feel like they're getting something new too. You know, I kind of like that in a way, because one of the things I'm a little worried about with the Watchmen movie is I've read the book so many times, I know the material so well, an absolute literal adaptation like that would almost seem a little dull to me because I know it so well. Although it won't be for most people who go and see it, most people won't have read the book.
Yeah, no, that's true. Keeping with movies, how's the Kick-Ass adaptation going with Matthew Vaughn, and how involved are you in the screenwriting?
I've been very involved with this one. Like Matthew and I started working on Kick-Ass last summer. I wrote the series about a year ago, and so we knew what was coming up in the thing. I still to kind of finish it, but we knew sort of broadly what was going to happen towards the end. And Matthew kind of fell in love with the project. He'd just fallen out of doing a project at Marvel. He was going to do a movie called Thor, and with the writer's strike and everything, it ended up not happening. So he ended up looking for something to do over here. And you know, I sent him the first few issues. We were talking about doing something together, and he just loved it. And he said he wanted to just do it exactly like the book. You know, just scene for scene, pretty much, like the comic book. And that was very flattering as a writer. That excited me, because I felt as if we'd tapped into something quite new with Kick-Ass. It's not really like any other superhero thing anybody's done before. And the comic's outselling Spider-Man. It's doing crazy numbers. Instantly it was outselling Spider-Man. So we're obviously tapping into some kind of cultural zeitgeist just now. So we want to get the film out as quickly as possible. So we start shooting on the movie a week on Saturday, and it should be out in less than a year. It should be out very early next summer, all going to plan. We'll get a 9-week shoot ahead of us, and it's looking great. It looks fantastic.
Just asking that, you've mentioned the Ultimates is going to be the basis for the Avengers movie. Any tidbits on that?
Well, a few years ago, Marvel were in bankruptcy, and as one of the desperate measures to kind of get them out of bankruptcy, they hired myself and a friend of mine called Brian Bendis to revamp the Marvel line, and they called it the Ultimate line, where they reinvented the characters for a new readership. And a lot of that stuff's been used in the Marvel movies that's come out. Like Samuel L. Jackson appeared at the end of the Iron Man movie as a character called Nick Fury, and that was based on something that my friend and Brian Hitch and I did on a book called The Ultimates. And bit by bit they seem to be sort of bringing the ultimate stuff to the screen, and none more so than the Avengers movie they have planned for the year 2011, which Zach Penn, the writer, has said in interviews is going to be pretty much an adaptation of one of the books that we did. So it's very flattering, it's great, you know. We won't get paid for it, I'm sure, you know, because it's work for hire, but even so it's brilliant. I mean, to see something that you've done just up on the big screen every time. It's a buzz, isn't it? You know, so yeah, we can be happy about it.
Brilliant. It's coming from everywhere, isn't it?
I know it's nuts.
I'm really enjoying the War Heroes at the moment, and although admittedly the collapse of America's global footprint and the American military does provide a far larger canvas to work with, were you ever tempted to have a British slant to the story?
No, the weird thing that I've learned from an early age really was that the UK is inconsequential to a worldwide readership. It's really weird. Like, America is something that's universally understood. You know, like, you only have to show the Chrysler Building, and everybody in the world knows where you are. You know, Fifth Avenue, people recognise it. Whereas, you know, Glasgow or even London, really, outside of Big Ben, you know, it doesn't really resonate with world audiences in the same way. So I've never really been interested in doing something with a British bent. I've always kind of luckily been interested in a global audience. I think growing up in Scotland in particular, we saw ourselves as the 51st state really in the UK. Americana has always been huge here. American flags you see in pubs and so on in Scotland. We've always been, it's a working class obsession, I think, with Americana that I grew up with. So yeah, no, I've always been more interested in America than the UK, although I prefer to live here.
Because it's too hot generally.
Yeah.
Here we go. How's it been working with Tony Harris?
Tony Harris and I have just done 10 days together in the US, and it's funny because we had never met until we sat down and started signing a book in New York 2 weeks ago, and it could have been a disaster because we didn't know each other from Adam. We could have hated each other, but luckily we instantly really got on well, you know. And we spent 24 hours a day together for 10 days, and we toured. We did New York, North Carolina, Texas, Vegas, Arizona, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, one after the other. We were on planes together every day, sometimes 2 flights a day and everything. We got on like an absolute house and fan. And the book has gone down great. We're doing this book together called War Heroes, and it's really sort of very quickly getting picked up as a movie, and the book itself selling great and getting a really good reaction. So we're definitely going to do more stuff together in future. You know, we've ended up really good pals out of this thing. People don't really do signing tours in comics anymore. Normally people just go into Chicago or they go into New York or LA, but we really fancied just getting into the flyover states, they call it, all those places that nobody really goes to do signings, and the response was fantastic. It was very heartening.
Brilliant. Is that John Candy? Away from your standalone stories, do you have any work coming up with Marvel or DC monthly titles?
DC I won't be working for a little while. I've signed an exclusive again with Marvel for 2 years. I can do the stuff for my own company outside of it, but I can't work for their direct competitors. But Marvel, yeah, I'm going to do some more stuff there. I'm going to do a big book in the Ultimate line again next year, which will be a big monster book, and I'm finishing off my current commitments. I'm doing Fantastic Four, Wolverine, and the book called 1985 at Marvel right now. They'll all be finished by Christmas, and then next year the only book I'm doing is this new book for the Ultimate line.
Cool. Penultimate. With your standings in comics and movies, in the movies world now, is it easier to get projects greenlit?
Yes, I've been very lucky. My first kind of half of my career through the 90s, I had absolutely no luck at all. It was terrible. I mean, I actually spent more time writing proposals than writing books, and I always made a good living. I always kind of wrote enough that I was fine, but it was really hard to get stuff greenlit. It's so hard. And it all changed with a book I took over from Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch called The Authority, and that changed my life really overnight. And since then, thank God, you know, I've never had to write another proposal really. You know, I just phone up an editor and say, listen, I fancy doing this, and they say, go ahead and write it. You know, so as long as your books make money, your stuff just automatically gets greenlit. And there will come a day, because it happens to everyone, people stop buying my books, and that'll be horrible, you know, to go back to writing proposals again, you know. So hopefully I'll have the dignity to just bow out just before then, you know.
Definitely. That's when you start having dinner with Hugh Hefner once a week.
Exactly.
And finally, turning to some real life Superman like Chris Hoy, Did you get as excited at the GB Olympic success as everyone else seems to have done?
No, I'm the only person who doesn't get the Olympics, you know. I absolutely hate the Olympics, right? I genuinely despise the idea of spending all that money sending camera crews and all that out there, you know, to watch guys run from there to there slightly faster than the last guys who run from there to there. You know, to me it's the most surreal thing in the world, or how far you can throw an object. You know, I feel like an alien watching this. I just think I've got no national pride whatsoever for this. It's baffling to me. You know, and the fact it's on TV all day as well, and it takes up the news and everything. I hate it. You know, I quite like that fish guy though. I think he's quite interesting. You know, that fish guy, the American Phelps or something. He's that's been the most interesting thing about this. The fact that they've got non-humans doing it. I'm quite interested in that. That he eats weird stuff and he can swim faster than humans can. But otherwise, no, I'm not interested.